Hello, everyone. Pace Journal family. We are back. And me and Tymal have been telling you guys for weeks now, we've got something very special planned for you. As we all know, it's getting very close to the IPL time, the biggest show, the biggest tournament of the year. So we thought to preview it, we would bring you two shows with some very special guests, as you can see. If you follow cricket and are on Twitter, then it's very likely that you're aware who these two gentlemen on your screen are. From Cricinfo, we've got Matt Roller. I'm a massive fan, does some fantastic work. And from the cricket statistics powerhouse, CricViz, Ben Jones. And many of you guys will see Ben in terms of on Twitter, man. Fantastic insight. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. How's it going? Matt and Ben, how are you guys?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us. Yeah, very much looking forward to the start of the IPL. Only a week away at the time of recording. So, yeah, delighted to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all moving quickly in terms of preparation now. It's like the IPL after the Test series and the ODIs and T20s. It's kind of been occupying us all, I think. But now it's like ready for the big show, the real quiz. It's all for the next 2 months. I'm not going to do a huge amount else other than watch it and enjoy it. So it better live up to expectations.
Fantastic, man. Tymal, let's come to you first. What is it like? You know, obviously you've been in the IPL before. What's the build-up like going into a big season like this?
Yeah, it's exciting, especially obviously the local players. It's there, you know, for those guys that are lucky enough to get one of the 22, 23 contracts. It's a huge time of the year. Obviously, as we know, Indian players aren't allowed to play in any other worldwide T20 tournaments. So, you know, by the time the IPL rolls around, it's obviously the biggest, not just the biggest show in town, but the biggest show in the world. No other tournaments are going on at the same time. There's no clashes. There's very little international cricket as well. So it's exciting. You get, obviously, it's a little bit different this year with COVID. Guys arriving at different times, having to quarantine. So maybe the training sessions, the camps before aren't as you know, as regular and as normal as what they would be. Thinking back to when I played at RCB, we flew in maybe 10 to 12 days before the first game, and then you have a good solid week really to train together, a few practice games as such. But now with teams not even being at their own bases, all teams are playing away games, aren't they, this year in the IPL? So it's a little bit more spread out, a little bit less potential synergy between the teams, having to mess around a little bit, but it's the IPL. It's as I say, it's the biggest show in town, and the excitement will grow as we get closer to Friday.
Fantastic, man. Obviously, that perspective from a player point of view is invaluable. Thank you so much for that, Tymal. Guys, let's move on. I know your time is very valuable. Let's move on to our main segment, and we call it the Keys to Victory. We've all picked a team, you know, to preview going into this IPL. We've looked through the squads, the potential combinations, and come up with what we think are the keys to each team being successful in this year's competition. Ben, you've taken Sunrisers Hyderabad. Why did you choose them? What sat well with you for them?
Well, partly just because I know we kind of all work to varying degrees with the IPL, and we've kind of had different interactions with teams. But I've always been a Sunrisers fan. Kind of my first interactions with the league were around the time where they were starting, and so I just kind of feel like my interest really grew with them coming into the league. And they've always played a certain kind of cricket that I really identify with, just like really bowler heavy, really trying to kind of contract the game and keep it really tight. And there was that really amazing game against Mumbai in 2018, which is kind of my kind of iconic defence in the IPL. And that has changed a little bit over the last couple of years with like Bairstow coming in and making it a bit more batting heavy. And obviously Trevor Bayliss coming in as coach naturally kind of takes it a bit more in that direction. And there is a bit of that this year. You can see them lining up with Williamson, Warner and Bairstow in the top four, potentially, maybe even the top three. And, you know, that's a batting heavy side, whichever way you look at it. But they've still got that core of like really, really world-class Indian bowlers that I just think makes them such an appealing side to watch, because we all know, kind of, you know, T20 geeks that we all are, you win tournaments by having a strong domestic core, and Sunrisers have probably the best domestic bowling attack in the tournament. And so that was kind of what I zoomed in on straight away, as well as the fact that I just love them, full stop.
And Matt, you went with Rajasthan, a massive English influence. I hope that wasn't the reason why, but what was the reason you chose them?
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to Ben. I think Rajasthan just a particularly interesting team in terms of how they go for quite a different strategy to a lot of teams in really backing sort of 4 hard-hitting, big-name overseas players most years, especially since they came back into the league a few seasons back. They've gone for pretty much a core of 4 overseas who they will give the full season to when they can. And those are their stars. Whereas if you look at another team like Mumbai, for example, they have the Indian stars, big names there, and sort of fill the gaps with overseas players. So it's a completely different angle on team construction. But yeah, also there is an obvious England influence. I think half of their overseas players in their squad this year are English or England players, I should say, with Buttler, Stokes, Archer, and Livingston. And yeah, I think they're a really intriguing team because they're one of the few sides that has actually been able to beat Mumbai fairly regularly in recent years, but that hasn't always sort of borne itself out with where they finished in the league table.
Fantastic. Ben, let's start with you in terms of Sunrisers. Let's get straight into it. Before I do that, let me remind you guys that Tymal has picked the Chennai Super Kings and I have gone with the Delhi Capitals. So now for the Keys to Victory segment, Ben, we're going to start with you.
Also, just before we start, massive pressure for us because Ben literally has every statistic about every player to ever play cricket ever. So anything we can say, Ben can just say, no, that's wrong. Or
yeah, but the problem is that if it was over email and you gave me 20 minutes to look it up, I don't know any of this stuff. It's all just on a database.
That's the thing. We all just assume that because you work for CricViz, you have this internal computer that can just fire out any stat ever.
Absolutely not. Full idiot and full fraud. But yeah, if you gave me 20 minutes, different story. But yeah, hopefully, if you do want to fire any questions, I'll have a go. So I was going to say, so my first key to victory for Sunrisers, really basic, but zooming in on like that kind of core bowling attack, that core Indian bowling attack, is just keeping Bhuvneshwar Kumar fit for the whole tournament. If they can keep him, obviously over the last few years, he's struggled, he's had different injuries, he's come back and then limped off early. I mean, last season, he barely started the tournament before he was out again. And it was such a huge blow, and they actually obviously still did really well. They still like recovered and got well into the tournament, deep into the tournament. But he's just probably the second best Indian bowler around, like after Bumrah. So it obviously makes such a huge difference if he can have 2 months of, maybe manage him out the odd game, give him a bit of a rest, because obviously he's kind of coming off quite a long break, and we saw how well he did in the white ball series for India. He did manage to keep that up across a couple of weeks. But it's hard to do it for 2 months in the intensity of the IPL. It's such all the circus, as well as Tymal said, all the kind of mental side of the game as well. If you've not played for a period of time, that's obviously going to have an effect. But if he can be fit for the whole time, that's 10 new ball wickets across the tournament basically banked for Sunrisers, and we know how important they are in terms of the odd 80%. Take 3 wickets, win 80% of games in the power play, and all that. So hopefully, just from a neutral spectator, I don't think there's many better bowlers to watch in the world as well. So both with my Sunrisers shirt on and with my kind of neutral hat on, I just want to see him play 2 months of his best cricket.
Matt, what about you? Fantastic, man. Fantastic insight on the Sunrisers Hyderabad. Matt, in terms of Rajasthan, what would you say is the key to victory? One key to victory.
Well, I started in exactly the same place, which is with the fitness of their most important bowler, which is obviously Jofra Archer. As we stand at the time of recording, we don't know exactly what his availability is going to be, but I think it's pretty much certain that he's going to miss at least 4 or 5 games at the start. And from there, if he can come back midway through the season with them in a decent spot, then he can definitely lead them towards the playoffs. If he misses the whole season, I don't think they have a chance of coming in the top 4. And then on top of that, the other interesting one for them from a fitness point of view is Chris Morris, who's obviously their sort of their huge pickup, the headline act in this year's auction. I think he went for 16 crore, one of the biggest buys ever in IPL auctions. And again, he missed a few games last year for RCB. But if he can stay fit for most of the season and Archer is on the park, having been MVP last season, then I think they have the makings of a strong enough bowling attack to qualify for the top 4. If both of those guys struggle with their fitness, or Archer can't fly out for the second half for whatever reason and needs to manage his work, then I think they're really going to struggle.
Fantastic. And Matt, I don't know if you knew, but Jofra Archer is actually from Barbados. Fun fact of the day. But Tymal, in terms of the Chennai Super Kings, what is your one takeaway for their victory?
Yeah, so look, they're finished 7th last year, their worst ever finish in the IPL, which obviously isn't good. So you want to be bouncing back. But for me, the biggest key is how are they going to perform not playing a single game in Chennai? You look at their team, 6 names for you: Ravi Jadeja, Moeen Ali, Imran Tahir, Mitchell Santner, Krishna Gautam, Khan Sharma. That's 6 quality spinners, and really only 2 of them are, maybe 3 are going to play in any given game. They're used to playing games. This team was drafted to play half of their matches in Chennai on pitches that turn. Now, obviously, because of COVID, all the teams are playing in hubs around the country, not with nobody getting the home field advantage. So how will they fare with having all these high quality spinners and a team that is set up to play on a spinning surface and not have it anymore? So yeah, that's for me the biggest key. The takeaway to CSK is how they adapt, which spinners they pick. They paid lots of money for Moeen Ali and for Krishna Gautam. So in theory, you're going to play them, but are you going to play 2 off spinning all rounders on a pitch that might not necessarily turn? Probably not. So you're going to be playing one of those guys. I think Moeen Ali for the extra batting that he gives. But yeah, there's going to be some good names on the bench there that could be sat up for a long time if they're good wickets in Mumbai, etc., wherever they're going to be playing their games.
Fantastic. From my perspective, in terms of the Delhi Capitals, the first key to victory I've gone with is sort of filling the Shreyas Iyer void. I think how Benjamin would have addressed Sunrisers Indian core. I think Delhi as well, in terms of their batting especially, have shown in last season, for example, with the openers, with Iyer, with Pant, how impressive that Indian core is. Without their captain, Shreyas Iyer there, I think it leaves a big void. However, they do have Ajinkya Rahane, and I think it's sort of given that he's going to play almost every game this year, batting sort of at 3 in that position. And I think he has a massive part to play. Last season, he struggled, only averaged above 14. Strike rate was just above 100, 106 to be exact. He's got to do much better than that at 3. He hasn't done very well in this IPL in recent time. He's got what average of 17.56 in 19 innings at number 3. So I'm interested to see how he sort of adapts. He's very critical for them batting through those middle overs, you know, balancing the openers with the likes of Shimron Hetmeyer or Sam Billings, those guys that are going to come, Rishabh Pant as well, who we could potentially see in the lower order. So I think Ajinkya Rahane holds the key to Delhi's chances. If he can have a season like he did in 2017, where he got 393 runs, averaged over 30 in that tournament, I think Delhi could be in a fantastic position. Ben, let's go back to you. In terms of Sunrisers, what is your second key to victory?
My second key to victory is the development this season of Abdul Samad, the young Indian batsman. He's 19 years old, and he looks like he's going to be an absolute superstar. He's an incredible player. He's only played a handful of games in the IPL, but he's going at 10 runs per over. He's really, really aggressive batsman. And compared to a lot of young Indian batsmen, he's got legitimate power. When he can clear the ropes, he's got proper six hitting ability, which you obviously see team players often develop as they get a bit older and they develop physically, but he's got it right off the bat, straight away, right now. One of the issues that Sunrisers have always had is a really iffy middle order. They've always had power at the top, strength at the top, and then kind of fudged it in the middle with either overseas all-rounders like Shakib or domestic players like Vijay Shankar, and that kind of model of player where it's just like they're kind of doing a job. Whereas Samad obviously doesn't take up an overseas spot. If he comes through this season and really kind of goes to the next level, he's not going to go to Pant Hardik levels, but if he can just consistently contribute every couple of games a proper kind of powerful knock at the end of the innings, then I think it really takes Sunrisers to the next level and frees up a lot more options in terms of how they can use their overseas players. He's had a good, decent side, much like Ali, a couple of games, a couple of good knocks, and the same with Vijay Hazar. But I feel like now it's obviously, we speak about it so much with IPL. It's like the young Indian players getting used to playing in all that pressure. It also means that hopefully it brings the best out of the best talent, stepping up when it matters. So fingers crossed that he kind of develops and moves on from being a prospect to being a full-on performer.
Over to you, Matt. You spoke about Joffrey in your first key to victory. What about your second?
Yeah, well, I'll continue with a couple of England players. I think the way that Rajasthan used Josh Buttler and Ben Stokes is going to be crucial. And I think they need to take a call pretty early on, and I think they need to stick to it. Because last season we saw them use them in various different positions. Stokes played almost exclusively as an opener, but Buttler started as an opener and shifted down into the middle order. Basically using them the opposite way that England do, because England obviously open with Buttler and have Stokes in the middle. Rajasthan went for the inverse last year. I think there will be a real temptation to open with both of them. I think Stokes is really dangerous at the top of the order as a left-hander. He gets himself set. He generally sees off a couple of balls when he comes on. It comes in the middle overs, and will sort of get to 15 or 12 or something like that before he really puts his foot down. Whereas in the power play, he often can sort of pierce the field with more orthodox cricket shots early on, gets off the faster starts, and then flies through the middle and accelerates towards the end. But the problem if they open with both of them is it does leave their middle order quite light. They've got Sanju Samson in there, who I'll come on to a bit more. But then other than that, there's a few sort of relatively unheralded, I guess, Indian players, guys like Shivam Dubey, Rian Parag, Lomror as well in the middle order. So I think they need to take a call early on as to what the right combination is, whether they open with those two or split them up and stick to it as best they can, rather than having the sort of constant talking point and discussion point as to whether or not they're going to get the best out of them. Because when you spend as much money as they have on those two and make them as key to their batting as they have done, you can't afford to be sort of shuffling them around midway through the season to try and sort of fix a problem.
For sure, definitely it will be an issue for them. Tymal, in terms of the Chennai Super Kings, your second key to victory?
Yeah, so Sam Curran, I think. For England, he's
when he plays in the English, man. Come on, man.
Well, for Sam in the English T20 team, he's a bit part player, isn't he? He bats down at 7. He doesn't always bowl at all or is full 4. But for CSK, he's the main guy, really. He often opens the batting and opens the bowling. He's got, the full trust of MS Dhoni in terms of his role in the side, bowls difficult overs. If he's not opening the batting, he'll come in within the top 5 normally and be trusted to try and see games home. So you feel that his success or hopeful success will be a huge indicator into how CSK will do. He's kind of overtaken Dwayne Bravo now as kind of the talismanic all-rounder. You'd say that Bravo's in and around the 4th or 5th all-rounder to play once Lungi Ngidi comes back from South Africa. So you'd argue Bravo's not going to be there every game, but Sam Curran is one of the, obviously after Dhoni, probably one of the first names on the team sheet. So Sam Curran has a huge part to play. If for whatever reason, batting or bowling, he's having a poor tournament, it will really throw CSK off, in my opinion. So yeah, Sam Curran, he's my number 2.
No Dwayne Bravo as yet. I haven't heard about Jason Holder. It's just the English, man. But no problem. I'll pick up the slack for you guys. My next takeaway is similar to Tymal, is in terms of seam. I think it's the pace attack of the Delhi Capitals. If you look back at last year, just at 2 names, Kaigiso Rabada and Anrik Norke, 52 out of 97 wickets came from them, which is 53% of all wickets for Delhi. I think they will obviously have a massive part to play. We know the exploits, and I think Norke was brilliant last year. No one really saw that coming, being called up as a replacement for Chris Woakes. This year, they've got the 2 of them. They will be missing the initial couple of games. However, I do think Delhi have sort of added to that depth by obviously bringing back Chris Woakes, who is sort of an X-factor player for me because of the depth he provides with the bat. Obviously, his exploits being able to bowl at the death as well. And they've also got Tom Curran. They've snatched him up from Rajasthan. He can bowl at the death as well. And then when I see 2 experienced Indian seamers in Umesh Yadav, Ishant Sharma, who may not be to the level they are in international cricket in the IPL, but we all know what they're very much capable of. So I think from a bowling perspective, Delhi, they've got their battles with the spin. I'll get to that in a bit in terms of Axar Patel. But I think what they've been able to produce each year with the pace, I think it's very important that these guys execute for them again. And I think that would be a major reason if they're to go on to win this tournament. Ben, let's come over to you for your third takeaway. Love how this is going, guys. Fantastic insight from each and every one of you. In terms of Sunrisers, Ben, you gave us 2 reasons, but each team, many ups and downs, they may need a third one. What's your third key?
Well, it kind of relates to what you just mentioned in terms about like Delhi's pace attack, the raw pace that they've got with Rabada and Norkia. That is the one area that Sunrisers don't really have. They haven't got anyone who can bowl high pace, kind of play that kind of Lockie Ferguson, bowl heat through the middle like Mark Wood did for England in the T20 series. They don't really have that. Their kind of quickest bowler in the whole squad is probably either Khalil Ahmed or Bhuvi, and neither of them are anywhere near express pace, really. So I think what they need is a bit of help from conditions, and they need the pitches to kind of stay pretty placid, to be honest, because when they're kind of good and true and it's good batting conditions, I don't think they have the pace to kind of shock people through the middle. Luckily, they're playing 5 games at Chennai. Like Tymal said, kind of Chennai themselves aren't getting the opportunity to do that, but Sunrisers are, and they're kind of well suited to exploiting what we're used to seeing at Chapag in terms of that kind of slow, low, kind of very spin-friendly conditions. And so hopefully, from Sunrisers' perspective, their lack of pace won't be kind of too much of a concern because the pitches at Chennai are going to suit them. However, obviously, they play 5 games there and then they play a load of games everywhere else. So they need, when they leave Chennai, they leave that main hub, they probably need a bit of help and a bit of luck in terms of surfaces going their way, because if it's good and true and they need a bit of pace, it's not there. They haven't got it. They've basically got everything else, but they haven't got that pure kind of high pace through the middle.
Yeah, I can't call Jason Holder's name on that one. He's not pure pace, but he's effective. Matt.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very, very good, but come on, he's not bowling heat.
Yeah. Matt, in terms of you, Rajasthan?
Yeah, to sort of carry on the seamers front, I think their death bowling is the massive area of improvement that they need to step up this year. They were the worst team in the league at the death last year. They conceded over 12 and over, which is pretty horrible stuff. But the good news is that they've recruited Chris Morris, who sort of was almost hidden in plain sight last year and had this amazing season at the death, went at 7s at the death, without anyone really noticing. So in theory, Morris should be a banker for a couple of overs at the death. And obviously, if when Archer's available, he's one of the best in the world at that job. So if those two can play together, then that's a fantastic combination for the final couple of overs. When Archer's away, they may replace him with either AJ Tai or Mustafiza Rahman, both of whom are sort of not quite the same level, but both good death bowlers. But I think the big question is whether or not any of their Indian seamers can sort of fill in that gap almost when Archer's away. There's a guy called Kartik Tyagi in their squad who was pretty expensive last year, but I think has the raw materials to be quite effective in that phase. He bowls pretty quickly, good sort of back of a length balls into the body, into the ribs, and also obviously Unadkat, who's been there for a while on some pretty big money without ever quite doing the business. He's sort of someone who always seems to have a point to prove. So I think, yeah, if they can find a way to take that death bowling and turn it into a strength, having been a clear weakness last year, then that will be a major factor in whether or not they can reach the playoff.
Brilliant, man, Matt. Thank you so much for that. Tymal, in terms of Chennai, you're a third.
Yeah, this one's nice and short for me because pretty much everything Ben just said about Sunrisers also applies to CSK. They're very short on pace bowling in terms of out and out fast bowlers, especially Josh Hazlewood. He's just pulled out. We've seen obviously a few Australians now pull out, citing bubble fatigue and a long rest of the year ahead. So Hazlewood's pulled out. They haven't announced who they're going to replace him with yet. So obviously we'll have to just wait and see for that. But outside of him, obviously look quickest bowler within the squad, and he's in and around that 135 mark, so not express pace. And then, as we all know about Dwayne Bravo, Thakur and Chahar are good bowlers. We saw Thakur particularly in the England-India series just now. He's got good skills. He's got a really good off cutter where he almost bowls an off spinner really, but he's able to get good pace on it. So they've got some decent pace bowlers, but they don't have that extreme pace. So like just as Ben said, if they come up into conditions where it's particularly flat and a good wicket, which I'm sure we'll see a few of them over the IPL, they could struggle a bit with the ball, especially if it's not turning, as you say, because this team is set up to play on spinning tracks, and they're going to be hopeful that the Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore and Kolkata groundsmen do them some favours. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think my third one is sort of similar to you guys in terms of the depth aspect, because I think it's the overseas batsmen of Delhi pulling their weight. They've made some additions, one being Steve Smith, who had a subpar IPL. Many people would say for Rajasthan. I'm interested to see how they intertwine him into the mix-up. They've got Sam Billings as well, who, although he hasn't played since 2019, I think he provides that alternative for a West Indian, Shimron Hetmeyer, who is now coming into his own in terms of the IPL. So I think the two of those, along with Marcus Stoinis and Hetmeyer, will be very crucial for this Delhi Capitals side. I do believe Hetmeyer and Stoinis will get the nod to start. And You may see Billings and Stephen Smith brought in as the tournament progresses. They've got a lot of different ways they can mix it up in terms of combination-wise. You know, letting Steve Smith bat at 4, Rishabh Pant at 5, maybe moving Stoinis up to 3 because of that flexibility he has. But I'm excited to see Stoinis in that number 6 role. I wrote down his numbers, average of 51 and a strike rate of 156 at number 6. So if he can bat there consistently throughout the tournament, he sort of provides that lower order strength. And I mean, Pant, Stoinis, Wokes, maybe it's a terrorizing lower order for opposition teams. So excited to see how that goes. And I think if the overseas players of Delhi can really perform this year, Delhi could go all the way and win this entire tournament, even without Shreyas Iyer. Final takeaway from each of us, guys, as we wrap up the show. Ben, I'll go to you for your final key to victory. The Sunrisers fans are all listening to you, Ben. You better make this one special. They want to know, how can their team win this tournament?
A lot of pressure. I think it kind of relates to, it's quite a nerdy point. It's quite kind of geeky. In terms of the matchups, we speak a lot about it in T20 cricket, about kind of ensuring you can turn the ball away from batsmen, whether they're left or right-handed. And for all the brilliance of Sunrisers' attack, which I think probably should mention it, is probably going to be Sandeep Sharma, Tina Sarajan, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, Rashid Khan, and then one of the all-rounders or a combination of to make a kind of 5th, 6th bowler. It's brilliant, obviously, but in terms of the other options they have, it's Abhishek Sharma, who's slow left arm. It's Abdul Samad, who's a leg spinner who can turn it back in. And then there's Mohammad Nabi, who's basically the only kind of proper option in the whole squad that can turn it from left to right, i.e. kind of turn it away from the left-handers. Now, if they come up against a side like Delhi, who obviously have a good left-handed core in the middle with Pant and Hetmeyer, if Hetmeyer plays ahead of Billings, suddenly you know, Rashid Khan can deal with the best regardless of which way around they bat, but he's significantly better against right-handers. If you're backing that up with Abhishek Sharma or Shahbaz Nadeem turning it into the left-handers, you're going to get bombed. Pant's just going to whack you over mid-wicket. So I think it's important for them that Nabi gets picked, because they haven't picked him of late. They didn't really use him last season. I think it's important that they back him. He showed some good form in the PSL, because it does just give them that option that it solves the lower order hitting problem if Samad doesn't come off and develop as quickly as he could. But it also gives them that matchup option through the middle against sides like Delhi. I mean, we've seen Mumbai literally pick an off spinner, literally just to combat the left-handedness of Delhi. So it's important. If Mumbai are doing it, copy them, because what they tend to do works. But so I'm hoping for Nabi's sake and for Sunrisers' sake that they back him and he gets into a bit of form. You know, he's an older guy now. Hopefully he can he hasn't lost it, and he just kind of comes through and has a bit of a kind of final flourish in the IPL, because he's not going to be around forever. But I think he's definitely still got enough in terms of with the ball and the bat to really make a difference to Sunrisers' balance this season.
Brilliant. Matt, final from you in terms of key to victory for Rajasthan.
Yeah, well, I would say, just as an aside, that Rajasthan have exactly the same problem there. They'll probably go into this tournament fielding 2 leg spinners in Shreyas Gopal and Rahul Tewatia. And again, they don't really have a backup off spinner in the squad. They've got KC Karyappa, who's a mystery spinner, but not really a sort of classical off-break bowler. So they're going to have exactly the same problem against Delhi, and also a team like Punjab if they go with Gale and Puran at 3 and 4. But I think that the thing that's worth mentioning is Sanju Samson and how he does. He's obviously captain this season. He's not got a huge amount of captaincy experience. He did a little bit in domestic cricket this year. But the big question for me is, will he be able to carry on playing with the freedom that he has in previous years while he has that additional responsibility of being captain? I think last year he had quite an odd tournament. He sort of started pretty brightly and maybe faded away a bit towards the end, but still ended up with a strike rate of 155, 160. But the big question is, can he keep doing that while he has this sort of extra responsibility? We've seen with someone like KL Rahul that sometimes captaincy does cause batsmen to play with less intent and to feel as though they need to see innings through to the end rather than playing their specific role. But if Samson can attack through the middle overs and provide that solidity in the middle while also sort of accelerating towards the end and taking innings deep, then again, that's going to be really helpful for them. What they don't want is for him to start playing insular cricket, sort of going into his shell, striking at 120, 130, slowing them down in the middle order, because that's not how you win games of cricket in the IPL. So I think Samson's form is going to be really important.
Fantastic. Tymal, in terms of you, Chennai Super Kings, a lot on, as you said, lowest finish ever last year. They need to get back in that top four and need to get a championship again to compete with the mighty Mumbai. What can they do to win that?
Well, it seems like it gets said every year, but the old boys, how are the old boys going to do? Look, Robin Uthappa, Ambati Rayudu, Imran Tahir, Faf du Plessis, Dwayne Bravo and MS Dhoni, they're all over 35. Shirish Raina, Khan Sharma, Pujara, Mo and Ali are all over 33. So that's pretty much half of your squad there over the age of 33. Now, that could obviously work two ways. There's a tremendous amount of experience. A lot of it is probably well over 1,000 games of T20 cricket there between all those men, should they be in the 11. So there's a lot of experience. They've seen it all, done it all. Is it a bit too old? Is that too many old boys there? You'd say they're on the decline. Obviously, they finished 7th last year. I'm sure Shane Watson would have been back as well, but obviously he retired. So how do these guys go? So they're very familiar with each other. A lot of these guys have been together for a long time, played a lot of cricket with each other. But at some point, there's a tipping point, isn't there? There's that time where kind of you balance experience, age, but you can still manage it. But at some point, you're going to dip off. So it'll be interesting to watch them in the field. A lot of older guys there. Are they going to have to hide too many people in the field? As we know, obviously I've played in many a T20 game. If you're having to hide more than one or two people in the field, so short third man, short fine leg, or wherever it is, it does affect you in the field, because then you've got a pretty average fielder in a relative hotspot. So that's just something to watch. Or they're saying that, a lot of those guys are still, good movers and still decent operators. But yeah, how the old guard go, considering it is half of the squad, it will go a long way to deciding how Chennai go as a unit.
Fantastic. And my final key, just quickly, will be, I think, what happens with this Axar Patel situation. We bring you the news very quickly. Hours ago, before coming on the show, I saw Axar Patel tested positive for COVID-19. I'm very sorry for him. I hope he gets better soon. I think he is a massive player for Delhi, as we saw last season, sort of in that role, being able to bowl left arm spin and, sort of bowl in tandem with Ravichandran Ashwin. I looked through the squad, don't see any other left arm spinner. In terms of spin depth, you could call on Amit Mishra, who bowls leg spin, even a Praveen Dubey, who also bowls leg spin. But looking past that, the spin contingent isn't somewhere that Delhi have put a lot of resources into. So I'm interested to see, I'm not sure how many games he will miss. We'll have to leave someone like Matt to reveal that information for us, break the news. But I think depending on the amount of games that he misses, I think it could be crucial, and even to the detriment of Delhi, the more games he misses without the experience of an Iyer. When you miss the experience of Axar Patel, that quality Indian spinner, it leaves the likes of Amit Mishra and these guys to step up in a big way. So I'm interested to see how it goes. I think that will have a big part, a big reasoning behind Delhi going all the way this year. And I think I'm very excited to see how it goes. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for your 4 keys to victory. I'm sure everyone at home has noted those down. And I mean, we're going to be back here in mid-season, so we're going to find out from you guys, see how they're really going. But fantastic insight from Ben, Matt, and even you, Tymal. Really brilliant. Now, for the fans at home, many of you guys would know about a segment that me and Tymal do. Well, I more do it. Tymal tries to compete, called the Friendly Wagers. But today we've got obviously 2 special guests on, so we're going to be including them in it, and we're going to be getting them to predict who they think will be the leading run scorer, the leading wicket taker, the best team, and the lowest ranked team at the end of the IPL. So, Matt, I'll start with you this time because I started with Ben a lot in the last segment. Start with the most runs. In one player, who's going to get the most runs in this IPL season?
I think David Warner for me. I think Warner has taken so much responsibility for Sunrisers at the top of the order. He's such a gun. He's arguably the IPL's best ever overseas player. That'll probably be a controversial statement, but I think he's right up there with AB. And yeah, I think he's due a massive season. So I think, yeah, Warner for me.
So, what about from you? Who do you think is going to be that leading run scorer in the tournament?
Well, I won't complain too much if Matt's right and Warner's the leading run scorer in the IPL, so then he can come and do the same thing for the mighty Southern Brave this summer as we get to the 100. But yeah, I've gone King Kohli. He's already come out. He looks in good touch in the T20 series, just finished. He's already said he's going to be opening the batting for RCB. Yeah, look, it was a tough. I was looking through the squads earlier trying to decide who to pick. It's obviously very, very hard to choose, but Yeah, I've gone with King Kohli. I've gone with Virat. I don't think RCB are going to do overly well potentially, but I think Virat Kohli will have a very good tournament.
I hope Ben doesn't take my pick. Ben, what about you? Who's going to score the most runs?
Well, I don't want to take the spice out of it all, but obviously I think both Tymal and Matt are probably right. I think both of those guys are going to be right up there for all the reasons they've said. I've gone with Surya Kumar Yadav because I love him. He's one of the best players I think India have produced in a long time, and the fact that he's come through in the last few months to really kind of force his way into the white ball side and basically refuse to not be picked, I think kind of shows a lot about how good he is. But I also think that you guys have both picked openers. But Sky basically ends up playing as an opener because he bats so high up, and De Kock goes so hard in the opening phase. He just doesn't take a backward step. So Sky ends up facing lots of balls in the power play. He ends up getting a good run at it. And Mumbai are fundamentally going to play more games than everyone else as well. And Sky, if he's fit, is going to play the vast majority of them, if not all of them. So I think that gives him at least 3 or 4 more goes than RCB. Not to kind of preempt it. But I think that extra opportunity to have a bat and to have a few more games will see him over the line. I think.
Similar to Ben's position from the Mumbai Indians, I'm going with Rohit Sharma. I think Rohit Sharma, obviously one of the best batsmen in the IPL. He's had these up and down seasons all throughout the order, batting at 4, opening the batting at 3. No one's ever sure. I think this is the year. His team needs him the most. You're going to see a different Rohit Sharma come to the fray. And I think he's going to just blow everyone else out the park and be a big part of why the Mumbai Indians go all the way. So I'm picking Rohit Sharma to get the orange trophy at the end of the series, at the end of the IPL. Let's move on to the bowling. I'll start with you now, Ben. No time to think. As Tymal said, you have the advantage on us, but I'm just kidding. But what about the bowler? Who's going to take the most wickets in this IPL?
I've gone very boringly on this one. I've gone for Kagiso Rabada. Because he's obviously a fantastic bowler and he's been competing for this award over the last couple of seasons, but also because he bowls so much at the death and he's so good at taking wickets at the death. When batsmen are a little bit, a bit more willing to just swing from the hip and to kind of show their stumps a bit, and he's very good at nailing his Yorkers and cleaning them up. So I think he picks up quite a lot of, not junk wickets, wouldn't want to say that, but he doesn't take many power play wickets when it's hard to take them. He gets them at the death, and as a result, gets an absolute ton of them. So I'm kind of damning him with faint praise. I think he'll take the purple cap, but a lot of it will be skewed towards the death overs, as they tend to have been over the last couple of years. I'd like to see him win it though, because he's great. Rabada's one of the best to watch in the world when he's in full flight.
Obviously, Rabada won it last year, 30 wickets in the tournament, 17 matches. Tymal, you now, in terms of the leading wicket taker, who's your pick? You're on mute, Tymal.
There we go. It's a year in, I still can't use Zoom. I've gone left arm union, Trent Bolt, swinging the new ball, as you say. He's going to be playing for Mumbai, so there's a good chance he's going to play a decent amount of games. I think we might be tipping our cap a little bit of who we're predicting to win. But yeah, I've gone for Trent Bolt. Swings the new ball. One of my favourite players to watch, as I say, fellow left armour. Bolt, plays every game. Obviously fit as a fiddle. Bowls top and tail. Bowls at the death. Gets his Yorkers in. Trent Bolt swinging it back into the right hander. LBW poles everywhere.
Matt, what about you?
Well, first of all, I want to hear what Tymal thinks of Ben saying that wickets at the death are junk wickets. They don't count as much. But yeah, no, I think my answer to this one is Bumrah, basically because he's Bumrah, and also because he's had a bit of time off following the England-India series. He's got married. He should be in a pretty good space physically and mentally. And yeah, I think this is the time for him to add a purple cap to several winners' medals in his trophy cabinet.
Well, when Ben said his option, I said, okay, good, I'm safe. Then Tymal said my pick, Bolt. So I said, okay, I'll go to Jasprit Bumrah. And now Matt has taken that as well. So just to be a little different, because I think any 4 of these guys could go on to win this. It's Anurag Norke, I think 22 wickets last year. I know he is missing a couple of games this year, but I still think he has the ability to catch up for it. I saw him in the Pakistan ODI yesterday, just a wicket taker, man. Really excited to see what he can do again this year for Delhi. So I think those 4 guys, any one of them could go on to win the purple cap. And I'm very excited to see how they go about this. And as Tymal, being a practitioner in that field as well, I'm sure he respects those guys in a big way. So really fantastic going forward to see how those guys fare. Tamal, I'll come to you, put you in the hot seat first. Who is going to, I'll save the winners for last. Who's going to finish at the bottom of the table this year?
Again, it's tough to predict, and ultimately you can't predict these things. It's very difficult. But I previewed CSK today, and I was looking at the team, and I was, deciding how they're going to win it. I was struggling, if I'm being completely honest. As I said, I think if it was a normal IPL season and they were playing half of their games in Chennai, I think it would be different. But the fact that they're so heavily reliant, to me, on spinning tracks, I think they're going to struggle. I said finished 7th last year, which was their worst finish, and I think they could follow it up with bottom of the log. So I'm going to go with Chennai, but you can never rule out MS Dhoni, etc. But I'm going with Chennai.
Ben, what about you? I'll come to you next. Who do you think is going to be the team that struggles the most this year?
Well, it shows how persuasive Tymal is in these kind of things, because I was going to go with Punjab Kings. I was torn between Punjab and Chennai, because I do think that Punjab's attack is just lacking a little bit of firepower. I think the fact that there's going to be so much pressure on Jai Richardson coming in, and the fact that there's I don't know, Ravi Bishnoi played really well last year, but he's a young leg spinner. Sophomore leg spinners don't tend to go that well, as people have had a bit more of a chance to have a look at them. So I'm a bit concerned about them, but I think Tamal's right. I think Chennai just need a bit too much to come together. I think their bowling attack has potential, and obviously the batting has so much experience, but I think it would have to be quite a special season for them to really bother the playoffs, I think. So, and as a result, I can't see them winning that many games, to be honest. So we'll check back in 2 months' time when they've won the whole thing. But for now, I'm not that confident in their chances.
Matt, what about you? Coming to you last.
Basically, for all the reasons Ben said, I think Punjab will come bottom of the pack. I think, much as I'm reluctant to sort of write off a team with Nicholas Pooran in the middle order, I think their bowling attack and their sort of death overs batting is maybe a little bit lacking. I think particularly the bowling, I think I'm just worried about the lack of depth, and also the fact that some of the guys who they're going to be heavily reliant on in Richardson and potentially Riley Meredith are both making their IPL debuts. So it's a massive thing to be coming in as overseas players, sort of leading the attack in your first ever season. So I think, they're my tip to come last. Whether or not it's right, we'll wait and see.
We shall wait and see. My pick, a bit different to you guys. I think the Chennai one is a decent one. I don't understand the Punjab Kings one. The mighty Chris Gill, Nicholas Pooran. Come on, guys. But anyways, my pick is going to be Rajasthan. I think things aren't looking too encouraging with Jofra Archer. I think if he's missing, he has such a crucial role for them, man. I don't see how they can rebound. Yes, they've got Chris Morris and they've got a lot of depth as well. And I hope they prove me wrong. But as Matt touched on it before, when you got Buttler and Stokes at the top of the order, I worry about that middle order. And I think Sanju Samson has been a fantastic player to watch, but it's this consistency that's been his downfall in the past. So if they can get those things right, then maybe. But for now, I'm going to pick them as my team that I think will, be finished at the bottom. Finally, guys, as we go into the final thing of the show, if you do not pick the Mumbai Indians as your winning team, turn off your camera and go home. Nah, I'm kidding. Who do you think is going to go on to win this tournament? A lot of, good teams, but I think Mumbai Indians, man. Wow, what a team. I'll start. Who should I start with here, man? I'm interested to hear this. Let me start with Ben. I haven't started with Ben in a while.
Well, I'm not going to disappoint you. It's obviously going to tip Mumbai Indians. They're the best side. They're the best 11. They've got the best squad. I think they're not as good as they could be in terms of. I don't think their auction business was that exciting. I think bringing in Milne was a really good backup, but high risk, injury prone, and he's not been exposed to that much IPL cricket. I think they maybe could have upgraded in a few more areas, but they won it last time. They're slightly better this time. I can't really see that anyone else has made huge strides. I'll tip Sunrisers to push them. I think it'll be a Sunrisers Mumbai final, which I think is what I want personally. But I think, Mumbai they're just too strong. They're just so good, and in every department they've got enough to hurt you. And like Tamal said, I'd love to see Bolt tear it up again, because him at full strength swinging that new ball just makes everything else kind of fall into place. He's perfect for them. So Mumbai to win it, but Sunrisers to push.
Mumbai or the field? That's the question we should be asking.
I think just to avoid the full house of Mumbai, I'm going to tip Sunrisers. I have a feeling that I think the fact that they're playing a lot of games in Chennai and on slow pitches is going to help. I can see Rashid Khan having another sort of all-time great season. Sort of they're becoming a bit of a speciality for him. And yeah, I think they've basically reverted to type, the side that has done so well or did so well under Tom Moody. They've got him back as director of cricket. I can just see a similar sort of vibe, a similar core about the place. I think if they end up playing those three overseas batsmen and Warner, Bairstow and Kane, and then back that Indian attack that Ben's discussed and Rashid to supplement it, then I think that's a really strong side, just winning those low scoring games on tough pitches. And yeah, who knows? It's just to avoid it being a Mumbai full house, I'll go with them.
Tymal, what about you? Are you with the Mumbai or are you with the field?
Yeah, look, I tried. Traditionally, I like an underdog. I don't like backing the favourite. I'm a Norwich City football fan, so that's kind of my life. But I looked at that Mumbai 11, and then the thing that probably tipped it was then I looked at the bench, who's probably going to be missing out for Mumbai. So even if there are injuries, guys out of form, they've got players to come straight in, and like Colton Isle, Chola, Chris Lynn, Jimmy Neesham. They've got a really good squad, haven't they? Hardik Pandya, I think, will be a big key to success if he's fit to bowl for the whole tournament, as we saw obviously with India as well. It's a different team when he's able to bowl and able to bowl well. If he's only playing as a batter, obviously it affects the balance of your side a little bit, even though he is brilliant coming in at number 5, 6 anyway. So yeah, I think that batting lineup is ridiculous with obviously the Cox, Sharma, Surya Kumar Yadav, Ishan Kishan, Kiran Pollard, Pandya. They keep coming at you. They've won 2 on the trot. They know how to win. So they're not playing home games, but I don't think it'll matter. Mumbai to win.
Well, I've been a Mumbai fan from the inception of me watching the IPL, but nowadays it's not even proud to say it anymore, man, because I feel like every single person I speak to is a Mumbai fan. So, but like Tymal, I like to see the underdog win. I think Sunrisers have a good chance. I think Delhi as well have a good chance, but I just can't see anyone past the Mumbai Indians. I mean, as Tymal said, strength in every area. I'm sorry, guys out there, folks, fans, that we've gone with the Mumbai Indians, but they're just too strong, man. It's exciting to see. I think many people will pick the field over them, and let's see how they deal with that pressure being such a dominant team. Let's wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much once again for coming on to the show. We will get back together, is what I wanted to say. At the halfway point, we'll get to some review on your takeaways, but more importantly, I'm very interested in the wagers side of things, and I want to see how right you guys were in terms of, competing. Tymal doesn't do a very good job with competing with me, but I'm sure you guys will be better at it. For now, that's all. Matt, Ben, guys, please check them out on Twitter. Follow them at Matt Roller, at Ben Jones. Follow them. It's been fantastic to have you guys on. Fantastic insight. Please do come again very soon. And we're going to have 2 very special guests for you guys tomorrow, fans out there, but we won't reveal just who yet. Tymal, thanks as always. Cheers, guys.